Good morning. We citizens of Boston are here to express our acknowledgement and appreciation of the Boston Globe's excellent reporting on race in Boston this week. Many of us have many of us in the black community have experienced a number of the crises that are occurring throughout the black community in this city. We've experienced them over the decades. Where in some ways we're saddened, but we're also elated that these crises are being expressed publicly, particularly to the larger white and privileged communities in this city. Boston stands as a place of racial apartheid in terms of housing. Blacks are disproportionately poorer in this city. Education opportunities in its public schools disproportionately harm African Americans. That's a sad statement for a city that purports to be the cradle of liberty. So we come here not celebrating, but soberly acknowledging the sad condition of Boston's social infrastructure. And we applaud the work of the Globe. We ask that on their editorial pages they advocate policies that support the racial divide in the city of Boston. We represent 12 organizations across the city of Boston called Boston Communities United. We issued in October a list of 10 demandments, which is a comprehensive policy expression of how to deal with the issues of race in Boston. So we talk about education. There should be 22% hiring of African American teachers in the city of Boston according to the 1972 consent decree. There is still not an integrated, equal fire department in terms of hiring. Neither is there an equally integrated police department in terms of hiring. If you're black and a male between 18 and 34, you're more likely to be murdered in this city. These indices are a sad indication about how we are so divided. And while we applaud the work of and the expressions of Mayor Walsh, much more needs to be done by his office and by all citizens of goodwill. Thank you. We will now hear from a representative of Black Communities United and former elected officials and citizens who want to do the right thing. Former Councilor Jeff Durham.
Thank you. I also support the thought that the Boston Globe did service to the city of Boston and the communities of color to bring out their 7-part series. Unfortunately, however, there are, I think there's one area where they did not focus on the crisis that's facing particularly the Roxbury community at this moment. As we in the community know, there are 1,100 market rate units that are now in the pipeline. There are 625 at the Tremont Commons project. On public land, there's 200 in Dudley Square being developed by the Guscotts, and there are 125 market rate units being developed in by the Kensington Corporation on Townsend Street. To bring 1,100 market rate units into the community obviously will have an effect. Obviously those units are going to have primarily whites in them. I have no problems with white people in the community. However, we know that when the tipping point comes, when the number of white people in the community, in communities reaches a certain point, it acts as a driving force in terms of pushing out people of color. That's the context What they didn't report on was the question of the City of Boston housing policies and how the City of Boston housing policies relate to the private development and the development at Tremont Crossing. The City of Boston policy is that 85% of development on public and private land will be mixed, will be market rate housing. 87% will be market rate housing. That means, I think we all have to acknowledge, if you already have 1,100 units in the pipeline of market rate housing, and they're now, their policies are going to see that in the master plan projects in the Dudley area, they're going to be 87% of those are going to be market rate housing. That creates a dynamic in the Roxbury area that speaks to an eventual economic changing in that neighborhood. Let's not deny it. We see it in cities across the nation. The Globe ought to have looked at that issue, and since they didn't, we need to bring it to their attention and everybody's attention that the City of Boston's housing policy, while we talk about ending racism, in fact has a policy that is going to make it more difficult for black people to live in Roxbury and Greater Roxbury. Thank you.
Former City Councilor Garrett Saunders.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to just piggyback on some of the things that Councilor Turner talked about. But I want to highlight, first of all, I want to thank the Globe for the Spotlight series. I think you did a great job highlighting some of the things that all of us here already know. And those of us who live in communities that are facing gentrification, we deal with every day. So first and foremost, I want to thank our governor and mayor for the things they have done right, but there are many challenges still before us. We've been fighting to keep lower income, middle working class people, people of all diversities and colors in the neighborhoods of Boston. Not just the Roxbury neighborhoods, but also East Boston, South End, Jamaica Plain, Dorchester, Mattapan, and even I was talking to a co-worker the other day who lives in West Roxbury, and even in West Roxbury, they're dealing with these issues of luxury condos being built and pushing out the neighborhood people. So my message to government, state government, and city government, to nonprofits as well as the private sector, we need to have some greater discussions, but not just discussions, but action. How are we going to keep the people in the neighborhoods of Boston that helped build the neighborhood, who invested in these neighborhoods? And our mayor, our governor, our civic leaders, our corporate leaders have an obligation to the residents and people of Boston to make sure that our city doesn't become a city of just the ultra rich and the ultra poor. That's a formula for just failure in our city. And the last thing I want to say is it's really about opportunity and access to opportunity. We still have a long way to go in the city of Boston, and I look forward to talking to the city councilors as well as our legislative leaders and our mayor on how we collectively, in a concerted effort, can make all the neighborhoods a fair, safe, and clean place for all of its residents. Thank you.
Taylor Key, a youth leader, part of Boston Community United.
Good morning. I just want to ask the young people to come out. What we're fighting for right now is our future and our present, and we are going to be affected no matter what the end result is. So we just need all of the youth, bring your kids, just everyone. This is a great learning experience. You have to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Reverend Joe Rocha.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. My name is Reverend Joseph Rocha of Grace Church of All Nations, a member of Boston Communities United. I concur with everything that has been said. We certainly applaud the Globe for its series on race, but this is not uncommon or unusual. They've done these series year in and year out. You do not have to tell us in the minority community, the African American community, about racism. We feel it every day, and we feel its ugly tentacles that affects every aspect in our community. I believe that this this income equality has led more to the social segregation. There was a time when groups, blue collar and white collar families lived together. We could empathize with one another. We saw each other in hardware stores. We sat with one another in the pews in the churches and things like that. But that no longer is the same, and it's devastating. You know, when we talk about income inequality, okay, when we even just look at the seaport and all the billions of dollars that were poured in there, how did the black community, the African American community, prosper from that? You know, we look at the Constitution, and many of these young folks that are rallying and protesting, they're saying that there's this hypocrisy there, you know, where it says that all men are created equal in the image of God, that we have these certain inalienable rights to life and liberty and happiness. Happiness is interpreted as prosperity. Where is the prosperity in our communities in dealing with education, employment, training? I'm getting tired of hearing from the mayor and the commissioner every time there is a death in our communities. What is being done as far as adding to the police, as far as having more minority officers and gang and violent crimes? And is there money going to community centers, to faith-based organizations, to organizations that are in the community that are working toward these efforts? So I applaud all that's been doing, but we've got to do more. We in the African American community need to frame this issue. We have to come together as a unified group and have to tackle these issues. But to have the dialogue is first, and then to come together with some solutions that are going to make fixes to these problems. We've got to do that, and we've got to do that now, not only to make Boston strong, but to make Boston stronger. God bless you.
So we'll take questions. Any questions about what's
So in your statement, you say you guys have been blocked and stymied in your efforts. Can you explain that?
Yes. So Boston Community United came together in September of 2017, organized a set of policy recommendations, and we forwarded those recommendations to the mayor and to city councilors. We've written the mayor. We've called the mayor's office and asked for an endorsement of these policies that go to the very issue of race, and we've had no response. Now, we are flummoxed about why the mayor, who purports to lead the city around racial division, is something that he articulated in his inaugural address 4 years ago. We are confused around why he has not answered our concerns, our policy recommendations that go directly to the issue of race. Here's our challenge. In less than a month, we'll be celebrating the birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. In 2018, in less than 6 months, we'll be celebrating or reflecting on the assassination of Reverend Martin Luther King and celebrating his last speech. We in Boston must accept Dr. King's legacy as a challenge, from the mayor's office down to the neighborhoods. We must accept his legacy as a challenge to correct the racially divided condition of blacks in Boston. So we in the black community, as some have stated, have been experiencing some of the racial division and the racial harm in this city for decades. Now is the time to answer, and we call on the mayor to be good to his words and his commitments.
How many, you said 12 organizations. Can you give us a sense of what those organizations are and how many people kind of you all represent?
Well, I would say that the number of people that are represented are in the hundreds, but MAMLEO is one of the supporters. The Black Economic Justice Institute is one of those organizations. The New Democracy Coalition is one of those organizations. Black Educators Alliance, one of those organizations. We have support from the Black Vulcans in the city. So there is a wide, broad coalition of black-led organizations in the city of Boston who are concerned about these issues, which are basic to us being a better city and being a better municipality. So we do not come with insignificant support. And we come mostly with a clear vision around how we address the issue of race in Boston. Again, we're glad about the dialogue, but we know the issues. The media has articulated the issues in a very formal way. Now we must get down to the table and negotiate. So between now and Dr. King's birthday in January of next year, we hope to sit down with the mayor and communicate to him these 10 commandments, which are policy recommendations, and begin a dialogue about how we implement them so that we achieve equity in the city of Boston over time. Any other questions?
Are you going to ask him today?
We certainly will. We actually want to go into this meeting and read the 10 commandments to be part of the formal record.
And what are they? The 10.
Well, we have them here. We can pass them out to you. Do we have a copy here? We can pass them out at the meeting. I have some in the car.
Yeah, we'll pass that.
So we're going to ask to read the 10 commandments into the public record. Yeah. But you can find the 10 commandments on BostonCommunitiesUnited.com. BostonCommunitiesUnited.com. Okay. So anyone? Sure.
I just want to add one thing. One of the things that we can look at really clear, and as an executive, the mayor and Governor Baker could deal with immediately, let's look at the management structure of state government as well as city government. And when you look at those commissioners, the directors, and the high-level managers, you really see a very small amount of African Americans, Latinos, Asians, other people of color who live in this city and this state. And so that's something an executive can deal with completely. When you look at the fire department, when you look at the police command structure, we have to have more people of color who can give a wider cross-section of input on how we can better govern our city and the agencies that work within the city of Boston. Thank you.
Bob Marshall, representing the Black Educators Alliance of Massachusetts. I'm a retired teacher, and I've been in Boston for a good number of years. And we've had dealings with the mayor. Back when the mayor first took office, a group of us, the executive board, met with the mayor, and he's told us point blank, because Boston has a federal court order where 25% of the teachers have to be African American, and another 10% other teachers of color, and actually should be larger. He told us point blank, you shouldn't have to have a court order in order to hire black teachers. You should do it because it's the right thing to do. Well, here it is 4 years later, and the numbers are worse than when he first came in. Okay, somebody should look at a lawsuit. Okay, because right now we've met with Dr. Chang. In fact, our last meeting was in June, and he got to the meeting late. He left papers back at the office, and at the end of the meeting, he said to us, "Well, what can we do?" Well, we've been after these folks for 4 years. We gave them a series of recommendations, and almost none of them have been implemented. So as a result, the numbers are still as bad as they were when he first came in. Now, I have a copy of the letter if you all want to take a look at it, but it's just, it's mind-boggling.
I'm sorry, for the
What are
record,
the-
your name again?
Robert Marshall, retired teacher, community activist.
And teacher with Boston Public Schools?
Yes,
How many years?
35, 28 at Madison Park.
Thank you.
You have the statements?
What are the numbers?
Right now, they're hovering around 19-20%. They're not good.
Nate,
Black teachers in Boston.
African-American teachers.
okay.
Okay. And that letter was delivered to Dr. Chang in June. But, we've met with Mayor Wolf repeatedly to the point where, there's no more good reason to meet. Okay? As Malcolm said, we're going to have to do things by any means necessary. Which
And
includes
just
legal action.
one last sort of parting sort of comment. It's incumbent on the mayor to hold these dialogues in the African American community. There have been 2 so far. Now, he committed to total engagement with around the issue of race. The two race dialogue sessions have been held outside the black community proper. So we asked the mayor and those who consult with them to bring some race dialogues into the black community so that there is more access, and B, a full expression of the concerns of people who live on the ground. You know, there should not be an effort made on behalf of poor, suffering, victimized black people to come into, a white community to testify about what they're going through. So we urge the mayor to be sensitive to the concerns of the black community and hold at least one session in the areas that are most impacted by race, which are highly segregated neighborhoods in this city. The blackest area in the city is Morton and Blue. It would be highly appropriate for the mayor to bring a dialogue session of this caliber into the black community. So we're not demanding, we're asking politely for him to be sensitive to the people who live in this city who suffer from racism. Any other comments that we'll finish? Yes.
I'll say about this. My name is Jean-Claude Seno. I'm a former candidate for City Council in District 5. While we are hearing the voices as a whole of these organizations, but there's a voice that has been shut for the longest. It's the voice of those who happens to be migrant into this country.
That's right.
Who have arrived and who has been stepped on and neglected, suffered due to language barriers, color of skins, and so on and so forth. And this outcry has never been heard, because if the original African Americans who were born here are suffering that much, we don't need to tell you how much our suffering has been lingered for the longest. And at times, we would like to raise our voices, but I'm glad that Boston Girl has brought this up, because I think in unity there is strength. And I am begging upon every single brothers and sisters in here that we are united completely as an African American coming from Africa to really not only voice it, not for just this occasions, but maintain it. Because you know what? The struggle has never been over, and it will never be over. The struggle needs to be passed on to generations like ours, making sure that they continue with the fight.
That's right.
Because our life has been nothing but a struggle on this planet Earth from day one. And we need to continue with that fight. And I'm asking the Boston Club, not only we are thanking them, but don't just do this for a spotlight. Don't just do this for awakening and putting everybody else back to sleep, okay? We are tired of this action that we need, and if they don't take actions, we're going to take actions ourselves. Thank you very much.
Just one more comment from Mamleo, representative, law enforcement officer.
My name is Preston Williams. I'm a chairman of the board of Mamleo, Mass Association of Afro-American Police. I met with Commissioner and the President Larry Ellison last year, and we spoke about problems and racism in the city. His statement to us was, why is it always going to be about race? That's what it's about. I spent 35 years in the Boston Police Department since 1968, and I seen racism in that department. I was raised in Roxbury in the 50s when I couldn't even go to South Boston Beach over there. They chased me out of there. So it's a long history of racism. It's undercover, but it's here. And something has to be done. The mayor keeps talking about it. We have a function in there today about the second annual meeting about racism. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a lot of nonsense, personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.